Former Public Enterprises Minister Malusi Gigaba was ordered to appear in court later this week on corruption charges linked to the Transnet procurement scandal. The National Prosecuting Authority confirmed Gigaba will face formal charges as part of the state capture investigations. Now, this week comes after weeks of speculation about whether he would hand himself over to authorities. Gigaba insists he will cooperate fully with the judicial process and respects the rule of law. His case marks another high-profile test of South Africa's commitment to accountability in state-owned enterprises. Meanwhile, we saw Senzo Mchunu voluntarily handing over his electronic devices to the South African Police Services yesterday. That's part of an ongoing criminal probe into alleged corruption and interference in the police service. To unpack this further, we are joined by Dr Levy Ndou, a political analyst from the Tshwane University of Technology. Dr. Ndou, a very good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for your time. It's been quite an explosive week so far. I mean, with what we're hearing from the Madlanga Commission, the Ad Hoc Commission, and now this. What is your sense of these latest deliberations, looking on one end at Gigaba and of course followed by the matter around Senzo Mchunu?
Good afternoon, Mpho. Good afternoon to the viewers at home. Indeed, this has been a very explosive week in terms of the revelations that we got from both the Madlanga Commission and the Parliamentary Ad Hoc Committee. There has always been talks about the issues surrounding the former minister, Dr. Gigaba. It is also informed by the fact that he was mentioned at the Zondo Commission, and there are witnesses who went into length to speak about his involvement or his activities at the Zondo Commission. My expectation is to get what indeed Dr. Gigaba is doing to fully cooperate with the law enforcement agencies. He is the lawmaker. He understands what it means to lead by example. And he is one person that, in my view, he is supposed to provide all the necessary cooperation. What is most interesting is the fact that him and both Minister Mchunu appears to be very much cooperative with the law enforcement agencies, and the handing over of the electronic gadgets by Minister Mchunu, it's another indication that they both do respect the laws and they understand that no one is above the law. But I think it's also important to note that even though people might cast aspirations on them, we still need to treat them as innocent until they've been proven otherwise by the courts of this country.
With that indication that, these actions signal both individuals respecting the law, from a political systems perspective, what does Gigaba's reappearance in these investigations now reveal about accountability mechanisms within the ANC and state institutions?
It is actually something that we expected. There has been calls from different sectors of society in South Africa that were saying that all those that have been mentioned or implicated in wrongdoing should face the law. And when it comes to the ANC, I think the ANC has always been very firm that they are against any form of corruption. And of course, if their members are charged, they therefore have to step aside. But it also has its own implications on the political future of these individuals, because the mere fact that they could be facing the laws and the ANC moving towards the conference in the next 2 years, it has a potential to negatively affect their ambitions to get into the National Executive Committee of the ANC, and indeed the possibility of being deployed in government. But at the same time, we require to see our law enforcement agencies working as expected, and any form of wrongdoing has to be dealt with. The ANC, in my view, should constantly support any efforts that are created to strengthen the laws of this country, and they should also be able to be seen as ensuring that those that appear to have done wrong within their ranks have to face the full might of the law.
I think it's important that you make mention of how the ANC needs to be seen and viewed. We're not far from elections. I mean, 2026 will be a significant year. How do all these cases and all these accusations and all the big names, senior political figures being made mention of in Madlanga Commission, Ad Hoc Commission, how do those mentions and looking at the intricacy of some of the big allegations that they face weigh in when it comes to what this will mean for elections and the outcome that the ANC could be faced with in 2026?
I see this as bigger lessons, and not only for the ANC, but also for other political parties. These are lessons that politicians are supposed to learn, that there are do's and don'ts when you are a politician and indeed given a responsibility in government. Any form of wrongdoing should at all times be avoided so that you don't find yourself in a situation similar to this one. There should be a clear line to be drawn between political heads and administrative heads. There are many instances where politicians will find themselves in trouble because they would have ventured in the administrative space. And when you look at issues that relate to Minister Gigaba, there is a talk about some businesses that were conducted that relates to the purchase of the trains heads. And my view is that the minister does not play a meaningful role or a major role in purchasing or procurement. He can also, to a certain extent, get as much advice as possible and do or practice whatever he has to do by the book. And that, for me, it's a good lesson for everyone. If you look at the issues relating to Minister Mchunu, it is also related to the same, that there appears to have been a moment where people feel that he shouldn't have ventured into a certain space. So it is a moment for politicians to learn that there are certain things that they can do and certain things that they cannot do whilst they're given these responsibilities.
Very significant. Dr. Ndou, I'd like you to allow me to bring in my colleague, SABC senior political reporter Samkela Maseko, into the conversation as we unpack this big week. Samkela, very good afternoon to you. I mean, Dr. Ndou makes mention of a very important and significant factor here. Politicians venturing into certain spaces that they shouldn't be venturing into. I mean, that in itself speaks around the circumstances that need to be understood about Malusi Gigaba presenting himself to investigators and what really happened and the processes thereafter that need to be followed.
The issue of Malusi Gigaba and Transnet and the procurement of the locomotive centralizes around him. It's a Schedule 1 charge. He says it was presented to him as a Schedule 1 charge by IDEC, and that's what they are essentially investigating around him, that he received an unbefitting gift. He received a gift that was not meant to be received, which was seen as a kickback from these particular two companies that these locomotives were purchased from in China. Because if you look at the budgeting of these particular locomotives, it was budgeted at about 32 billion rands. It ballooned to about 70 billion rands. And that ultimately tells you that there was maladministration taking place in the procurement of these locomotives. But in the signing off, the supply chain processes of this entire deal, Malusi Gigaba was not yet the Minister of Public Enterprises, but he oversaw the implementation of when these locomotives were delivered, assembled, and ultimately brought into the country, and thus received allegedly an ungratuitous gift that was an unbefitting undue benefit towards him, which is what is essentially being investigated by IDEC, and it goes essentially to those some of allegations that were leveled against him by his former spouse, Noma Mngoma, in the State Capture Commission of Inquiry, the bags of money, the spare wheel filled with money, the safe with lots of money from the monies from the Gupta family. There was just allegations of a lot of liquid capital flowing around Malusi Gigaba in hardcore cash. And these are some of the issues that IDEC is investigating that came out of the State Capture Commission of Inquiry, which brings in what Dr Levy Ndou is portraying to the fore, that there is this blurred line between the administration and the executive.
Very important point. Dr. Ndou, as we take a look at the ongoing prosecutions and the IDAC investigations, do you think they're sufficient enough to perhaps result in a change of behavior in SOE governance, or do they risk being treated as per episode when it comes to actions within structural reforms?
We need to acknowledge that even though we're 30 years into democracy, there are still a number of areas that we're supposed to learn and improve. Another area that in my view is very important is that when it comes to accountability, there appears to be a lot of focus that is directed to politicians and anybody else, and that puts pressure on politicians to even do more to ensure that they are able to make a difference in their own responsibilities. My view is that indeed there is still a lot that we need to learn, because if there is still an unclear line between the responsibilities of political heads and administrative heads, that therefore becomes a source of conflict. But at the same time, we need to be able to have a clear understanding of the responsibilities that are given to political heads, because I would not love to see in the near future political heads that do not have anything to do, because each time they'll be accused of venturing into the administrative space. But more importantly, you need to be able to develop a good professional relationship between the administrators and politicians, so that things have to run very, very smoothly at all times and avoid a situation where there would be accusations and counter accusations like we see happening with the SABC now.
Absolutely. Samkele, can you perhaps give us a sense of the exact documents and devices Minister Senzo Mchunu had to hand over, and what investigations and investigators have said about these devices?
Minister Mchunu handed over 2 old cell phones that he had. He handed over a laptop from the South African Police Service as a minister from the executive. He handed over his own laptop, his own rather cell phone that is currently in use, and he handed over a tablet that he owns to the South African Police Service to do their investigations of whether there is any connection between him and Ket Matlala or any of these criminals in the underworld, or any contact there was between Ket Matlala, Molefe and Minister Senzo Mchunu, or whether he was indeed protecting these criminal cartels, or whether he was influenced by these criminal cartels in disbanding the political killings task team. We did hear earlier on during the week the current acting Minister of Police, Kachalia, speaking about how it was correct for Minister Senzo Mchunu to disband the political killings task team, but bemoaned the lack of consultation by the minister. The same was done by Deputy Minister Kasel Matale, and also Poli Bushielo, who's another Deputy Minister within the African Police Service. So these are some of the devices: the cell phone, 3 cell phones, 1 active, 2 inactive, tablet, and a laptop. 5 devices that were handed over by the suspended or the minister was on a leave of absence. That would be Senzo Mchunu to the African Police Service, which essentially says that he wants to uphold the rule of law, he wants these processes to be done unhindered, and he always maintains that he's been ethical and acted in line with his oath of office of the executive order.
Dr. Ndou, you've been a very vocal critic of party state capture. How significant do you think, as my colleague Samkele here talks about Mchunu's devices that were handed over to the SAPS, how significant is that handover as an accountability moment for both the state and the ANC?
Minister Mchunu is not just an ordinary minister, he's the Minister of Police. And he should be seen as the champion of law and order in the Republic. And where there is time where he's supposed to exercise cooperation and accountability, he should be at the forefront of doing so. And I think at this stage, Minister Mchunu has done very, very well by ensuring that whatever evidence that could be required be handed over so that he's able to prove his point to all of us. He has been very much firm in saying that he has no relationship or a strong relationship with Kat Matlala and all the people that were indicated by Mr. Maseko. And indeed, that will require people who must go sit down and analyze this information. He is in a very difficult situation because he has to go all out and prove that indeed what has been said about him and his relationship with the so-called controversial individuals has to be proven, and it should be brought to the fore. So in the context of accountability, openness and transparency, I think Minister Mchunu did exactly what everyone expected from him.